You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
Now let's go to Dr. Marc Siegel, because, boy, are there a lot of medical questions to ask. Dr. Siegel, it's Rita Cosby. We have Judge Weinberg, also Craig Eaton, and Ed Cox. Dr. Siegel, I don't know if you saw the press conference today with Corinne Jean-Pierre. Every single reporter was asking about the president's mental state, every single different media. And they asked, does he have some form of dementia? Does he have Alzheimer's? And she said no. And then she said, but he did have a cold. And then they said, was he on medication? No. What do you gather from any of this? And then the other question was, has he had a cognitive test? This is something you brought up with us. They said, well, his medical team doesn't feel he needs one. What do you say to all this? You're a doctor.
I've been following this story for 4 years, and the media, unfortunately, it's like everything with the media. Once it's in the media, everybody thinks it happened yesterday. Dementia or cognitive impairment are progressive. They don't happen overnight. So it's not like he's fine one day and then mumbling at a speech the next day. And even if a cold plays a role, a cold isn't the cause of this issue. The issue is something progressive. Now, I've never examined him, but I have talked to multiple neurologists about this over the last 4 years, and I see a progression where his gait is getting worse, where his speech is getting worse, where his ability to follow a train of thought, especially late in the day, is getting worse, where his spontaneity is almost gone, where his spatial orientation is getting worse and worse, stumbling off the stage, having to be helped here and there, forgetting what he said. He's the teleprompter president, literally. And I think that's another thing that we're too accepting of in the United States, Rita, is that people are all reading off teleprompters. Am I the only one left who writes what I read off a teleprompter? I write my own teleprompter. So I think we've allowed so much of that, whereas, somebody doesn't write their own songs or their own books or their own articles, that we don't realize that he's not even reading his own words. This is progressive. It's not overnight. And the biggest disgrace here is that his handlers have been hiding it from the American public for years. And by the way, historically, that's what the presidency does. That's what Woodrow Wilson did, whispering instructions to his wife who was running the country after having the Spanish flu and thinking the French Foreign Legion was coming to get him and ruining the Treaty of Versailles, which led to the rise of the Nazis. That's what FDR did when he was dying and knew that he wasn't going to make it through that last term. That's what JFK did with his back. That's what Nixon did, taking 1 million pills. I had hoped that even Ronald Reagan, the esteemed Ronald Reagan, when he got shot, lost 2/3 of his blood. Nobody knows. They don't tell the American public anything. So that part is not new, but we're in an age of great transparency, and it's deeply disappointing because we, the American public, and I'm sure the judge would agree to this, we, the American public, have a right to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Judge Weinberg, go ahead.
Doctor, we just heard from Speaker McCarthy, and he said he was in a lot of meetings with Joe Biden, and at different meetings, different Joe Biden showed up. Is that part of the problem?
Yeah, the words are waxing and waning. The two things that characterize a cognitive loss, I don't want to keep saying the word dementia, the two words that characterize it are waxing and waning, and the other is denial. You're the last to admit it if you have it. You're the last to come forward and admit it. And I'm trying to find the words to say, Judge, that I feel sorry for the president, because here's why that's hard to say, because I also feel sorry for the American public. So he's responsible for us, but don't forget, he's going to be the last to admit it. And Jean-Pierre is not doing us any favors either. She's no doctor. She's saying he doesn't have dementia. Listen, last time he had a physical, there were things that were suspiciously missing from there, like an MRI. I mean, if I had a patient that had that debate, I'd have an MRI the next day, the very next day. So it looked to me like there was, to use one of your favorite words, Judge, it looked to me like there was obfuscation going on during his last physical.
Before we let you go, real quick, Dr. Siegel, also, I was watching, I was glued to the press conference today, and so they asked about this cognitive test, And they said, well, on the last test that he had, it was in February of this year, they said they did not do a cognitive test because his White House medical team said it was not warranted. My first thought was fire the medical team, because obviously, I mean, what kind of a medical team? And Ed Cox, you know, that's the medical team is kind of political there, right, Ed Cox?
Well, it depends. You often have your own personal doctor there. Then you have the military doctors also, but your own personal doctor runs the show.
Dr. Siegel?
Yeah, and that doctor could actually go from one administration to the next. So, look, I expect a certain amount of medical integrity and ethics. As far as a cognitive test is concerned, we do them serially. So he needed a bunch of them. He needed serial cognitive tests over time. I mean, Nikki Haley thinks everybody over a certain age should, or even any candidate should have them automatically. But I like to say that that debate was a cognitive test. You know, whatever you say about Trump, and we don't need the other side. You know, we don't need Pelosi saying Trump is demented or anybody saying that. Here's the thing. Trump, whatever you say about him, doesn't use a teleprompter, speaks extemporaneously. When I interviewed him in the White House 4 years ago, he wouldn't even look at the questions. He doesn't have notes. He speaks literally off the top of his head. That is a cognitive test of sorts. That's what I would look for.
Well, quite a contrast that the whole world saw during the debate. Real quick.
I think we should have the medical team that said he doesn't need cognitive tests to undergo cognitive tests.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if they think that this man, after what I watched in that debate, don't think that he needs a cognitive test, they need tests themselves.
Yeah.
Well, another thing, one last thing. They say the Democrats are saying bring back democracy. Democracy includes transparency. Wouldn't everybody agree?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
1,000%.
What are they hiding?
Yeah.
That's the question.
So the toughest job is Corinne Jean-Pierre, who says with a straight face, everything's fine, right? Oh, my goodness.
On the Titanic.
Yeah,
On the
exactly.
Titanic.
Right. I swear. Everything. That's not an iceberg. Don't worry about it. Dr. Siegel.
Just listen to the music.
Yeah, exactly. That scene. That was a good movie, though.
That was a great movie.
Yeah, great movie. Dr. Siegel.
Great music. Yeah, good to see it.
Thank you,
Right.
Dr. Siegel. We love you.